God save the Queen, God save the Queen, she's very old, the weather's cold, God save the Queen. Oh, how long it's been since I covered a band from the UK. Kaiser Chiefs first formed in Leeds, England in 2000 are still going strong to this day, almost 20 years on. They're known for their new wave-leaning indie rock, so they already have an interesting style to them. Add in British post-punk and you have quite a cocktail. The band have kept almost the same lineup since their start, with one exception, and with a new album on the horizon possibly this year. What better time to cover their work than now? Of course, that means going over what works and what doesn't. Now, let's face the music. We start with the band's debut album, Employment. Released in 2005 through Be Unique Records, it was also produced by Stephen Street and Stephen Harris. Now for the band members, then the background. Hooray! At the time, the band consisted of lead singer Ricky Wilson, guitarist Andrew Whitey White, bassist Simon Rex, keyboardist Nick Peanut Baines, and drummer Nick Hodgson. Now, although the band are known as Kaiser Chiefs, their initial name was Parva, and they even released an album under that name in 2003 titled 22. The band members' meeting was a unique set of circumstances. So Hodgson, Baines, and Riggs all went to the same school, and when they finished it, Riggs and Baines went to university while Hodgson stayed around the Leeds area. Soon after, he met Ricky and Andrew, and they formed under the name Runson Parva as a joke. But they soon dropped the Runson part after not getting signed. While under their current name, even though they weren't well known even inside their native UK, they got to perform in Moscow, their first show outside of the UK. However, the band would make their name pretty early, as in 2005 they'd be part of the Enemy Awards tour in early 2005 and opened up the show, which got them a lot of buzz, especially because of that. Imagine, Enemy actually doing something right. Due to this buzz, the band got signed, and soon after, Employment followed. The album, not the form of job giving, although maybe that isn't an inaccurate thing, because goodness me did this album do well. It's regarded as the band's highest rated, it showcases what makes them unique right from the start, and it released a slew of successful singles. It even reached number 2 in the UK album charts, and even went 5 times platinum. And if that wasn't enough, it was nominated for the Mercury Prize, which is usually given to the best British/Irish album of the year prior. Kaiser Chiefs lost that, but they did win the Ivor Novello Award in 2006 for Best Album. Also, Ricky Wilson won Best Dressed because, damn, that dude looks sharp. So this album was well received, sold well, and won awards. Safe to say that, yeah, I feel like this piece deserves that praise. It's ridiculously good, and after 14 years, it's aged really well. The sound is a unique mix of styles, and the band know how to make it all work into a strong core sound. There's tons of great structure, and there's a great balance and a tongue-in-cheek that really adds to the tone. The energy of it doesn't let up, and the lyrics cover breakups, bad relationships, and politics, all done really well too, and the band fire off on all cylinders. Ricky's vocals have a great balance and delivery, Andrew's guitar work has speedy riffs and nice little solos, Simon's bass work is deep, thick, and groovy, Baines performs well on keyboard, with nice sweeps and little elements, and Hodgson's drumming is fast and heavy too. Standout songs include I Predict a Riot, the closing track on Teammates, What Did I Ever Give You, Modern Way, and my favourite, and Oh My God. Employment is a huge debut launching pad, and the band's charming willingness to experiment, along with amazing production value for its time, make this album as good as it is. I can recommend this one. We then reached their second album titled Yours Truly, Angry Mob. Released in 2007 through Be Unique as well as Universal Motown, it was produced by Stephen Street, and it contains my first Kaiser Chiefs song in Ruby, which I think was most people's first song by the band. I mean, it did well for itself. It's the band's only #1 single in the British Singles Chart, and it even appeared on Guitar Hero 3, among many other video games, TV shows, and movies. The band did well off this album, as they sold out 2 shows in Oscourt in London near the end of 2007. It even became the band's second million-selling album, mostly riding the success of Ruby. In terms of writing, the process was a bit different, as the inspiration for the sound is based on Led Zeppelin and other American rock bands of that era, and it bleeds pretty well into the album. Ruby wasn't the only single from this album, as others, such as Everything Is Average Nowadays and The Angry Mob, did pretty well in the charts too. So yeah, the album didn't quite reach the same height as Employment, but it still did pretty well for itself. To be fair, it is a bit harder to capture a more mainstream sound without going too overboard, and considering how the band liked to throw back to older styles, it can get confusing, but I liked how it was handled here. I think that one drawback was that the band wrote about 22 songs for this album, with 13 of those making it to the album proper. And drummer Nick Hodgson even sings on the song Boxing Champ. Thought I'd tell you while I remember that bit. Anyway, I do like that this album has a more restrained approach compared to the more punk energy on their debut, but there's still a lot of edge on this album to keep it from getting boring. And also, for an album that attempts to crack at a more mainstream audience, this album is a bit darker lyrically, dealing with things like celebrity lifestyle and how the media news people and street crime. There was already political stuff from their debut, but that's taken up a few notches for this one, and I like how it's handled. Once again, not what you expect to hear from them, considering what the lead single from this album is. But it's a good showcase of how everything is mixed up, and it might feel more stripped down than their debut, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't kick ass. The sound is handled well, and I like the more straightforward approach here, giving the album's structure a more unique layer. And the lyrics, as mentioned, cover dark stuff like tabloid lies, media, crime, and fame, but the band make it work somehow. Ricky's vocals are still cheeky with good range and they sound cleaner. Andrew's guitar work is filled with nice riffs and solos. Simon's bass work is deep and thick. Bain's keyboard adds nice flourishes to everything, and Hodgson's drumming is timed well and executed brilliantly. Standout songs include Ruby, Highroids, The Angry Mob, My Kind of Guy, and my favourite in Try Your Best. Still energetic with a better handle, yours truly, Angry Mob, has great production value and its catchy songs and darker themes tied all together. I can recommend this one. We then reached the band's third album, Off With Their Heads, released in 2008, again through Be Unique and Universal Motown. It was produced by Mark Ronson and Elliot James, and it's the band's shortest album at 35 minutes and 34 seconds. This album also has a couple of guest stars, as Lily Allen appears on 2 songs, providing backing vocals for the song Never Miss a Beat, and guest vocals for Always Happens Like That, and rapper Sway DeSoto appears on the song Half the Truth. Hell, Lily Allen herself shares an odd link with the band in the first place. She covered the song Oh My God from the band's debut album on her first mixtape, and then later covered it on Mark Ronson's album-titled versions. Now, as is the usual with short time gaps, the album tends to be a bit better than its predecessor. Since the gap between this and yours truly is only about a year, now's a good time to mention that this album does indeed kick ass. It's got a lot more of the punk energy from their debut, but also a good amount of its sickle bleeding into it as well. The album did quite well too, as there was a DVD of their performance at Ellen Road where they performed to a sold-out crowd, and to coincide with the album's October release, the band went on tour to support that album, joining bands such as The Hair and Late of the Pier. I almost messed that up. The tour began in the band's backyard, where they became the first band to headline at the newly opened Leeds Academy, and that tour fell well into March of the following year, performing in various famous venues around England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. Later, in 2009, they got to open up for bands like U2, EO, and Green Day Yay, but obviously this album has to live up to that status, and it certainly does. It's got the charm and tone of their debut meshed well with the slightly more mainstream sound of their sophomore album. Speaking of their second album, Nick Hodgson sings here again, this time on the closing song Remember You're a Girl. Still, it's not fair to keep comparing this to previous works, as it stands out quite well on its own. It has good experimentation, and the shorter time frame isn't wasted. I feel like most of these songs are some that they wanted to put on Yours Truly, but they didn't really have time, which I'm good with, because I prefer the structure on this album as it's solid and catchy, and the lyrics cover youth, love and fame, still going over more mature stuff. But the band pull off a great balance and tie all together as well. Ricky's vocals and delivery are sharp and carry a good tone to them. Andrew's guitar work has every riff and really slick solos. I like his guitar work here. Simon's bass work has good riffs and grooves itself. Bain's keyboard adds nice little plinks and plunks, and Hodgson's drumming is nice, heavy, and timed well. Standard songs include Never Miss a Beat, Can't Say What I Mean, You Want History, Addicted to Drugs, and my favourite, and Half the Truth. With great production, oodles of charm, and a solid pacing and energy, Off With Their Heads is worth its short running time. I can recommend it. We then reached their fourth album, The Future is Medieval, released in 2011 again through Be Unique and Universal Music as well as Fiction Records. It was produced by Tony Visconti and Ethan Johns. This album was also re-released a year later in North America under the name Start the Revolution Without Me, so that is technically the longest gap between Kaiser Chiefs albums. It's a cheap loophole, and I'm exploiting the hell of it, even though I listened to the 2011 version. So, yeah. Anyway, this album was promoted solidly as the band started their own website, and days before announcing the album, they released the single Little Shocks. The way that the band promoted the album was rather unique, as on June the 3rd, about 3.5 weeks before the album hit the shops, fans who purchased it on the website could arrange the track listing, how many songs that there were between 10 and 23, and what the album artwork was, even to the point where the fans could design and submit their own album covers. I've not really seen many bands let the fans be that involved, and you have to remember this was 2011, before Kickstarter and things like that helped the bands to fund their music a bit more. And to top it all off, when a purchaser bought a copy of the album, every other person who bought that version of it gives that purchaser £1. So. And to top it off, when it was re-released a year later with a different name, there was a limited edition vinyl box set that was released alongside it. And it worked on a worldwide scale as the band got to tour around Portugal, Germany, Belgium, and Switzerland, just to name a few places. But it's not just substance or what the band gives back to the fans, as there's plenty of good inside the album's core sound. The Future is Medieval shows the band slowing themselves down a little bit, much like an Angry Mob, but there is still solid punk and indie sound that carries the album through. There's more usage of backing vocals, and it has a homegrown feel to it due to the album being recorded in Nick Hodgson's very own self-built studio. I like that, and it makes it sort of feel a bit more organic. It's a good structure to go on, and it's got a more experimental feel to it, like it's more of what the band want to do, but it's still very well measured. The lyrics cover relationships, life, and love, making it feel a bit more personal all in all. And the band do their best to make it not seem as boring as it could have been. Ricky's vocals sound a bit deeper and still have a charm and impact. Andrew's guitar riffs are good and he has balanced solos. Simon's bass work is thick with a good tone to it. Bain's keyboard work adds nice melody and lace to it all. And Hodgson's drumming is heavy, timed well and speedy. Certain songs include Man on Mars, Child of the Jago, Out of Focus, Dead, or In Serious Trouble, and my favourite in If You Will Have Me. Good energy carries a good album, and the charm and production value that went into it worked perfectly to create another solid record. I can recommend this one. We then reached their fifth album titled Education, 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 and War. Released in 2014 through Fiction, Universal Music, and Be Unique again, as well as through Caroline and ATL Records, we have another producer change in Ben H. Allen III. We also have a lineup change, as a year after the Future is Medieval, Nick Hodgson would lead to focus on his producing career, being replaced by current drummer VJ Mystery in 2013. It's also, uniquely, the band's first studio album to not be recorded in the UK, instead of being recorded in the May studio in Atlanta, Georgia. Which I find somewhat ironic because I think this might be the Kaiser Chiefs' most British sounding album. I don't have a lot of background for this one other than the fact that the band got to tour with the Foo Fighters in 2015, so that's some pretty big name recognition. That and the fact that this album's title is a little reference to Tony Blair's famous speech about education back in 1996. We've made huge steps since that time, as people can tell. That joke aside, it is a good indicator of this maybe being the band's most politically conscious album. Like I said earlier, it's more British feeling, and the fact that the title is a borrowed reference from a speech by a former Prime Minister really leans into that. It sort of feels more like a street punk album in some senses. It's a bit more anarchic and defiant, and I don't mean to act too poetic about it, but how it actually suits the band. It's got a lot more of the feel of their debut and third albums with a more punk-leaning sound, but it doesn't skimp with the core mechanics in any way, shape, or form. For an album with only 10 tracks, the band sure pour a lot of themselves into it. They're surprisingly good at that, as it turns out. The album was led by the band performing a new song called Bows and Arrows on their 2013 tour, and it was apparently recorded under a McDonald's in Islington. That song specifically, not the album. This album has two things going against it, namely the mixed response and the label of Britpop. This is definitely a punk album, and it's a lot better than people are making it seem. It's got the melody there, but also its dark subject that the bands talk about, all while showcasing a balance of their tongue-in-cheek humour while also showcasing their genuine maturity. I honestly feel like this album could have been one of my favourites back in 2014, and I really don't see many issues with it. I like the structure as it's solid and bouncy and happy, and it's balanced well with great production and sounds, and the lyrics cover political unrest, brotherhood, and war, and it again keeps a good balance, as do the band, it turns out, as always. They're so good. Ricky's vocals have more guts to them, but still good straight singing too. Andrew has some more good riffs and solos here. Simon's bass has a good riff and tone to it. Bain's keyboard work is flashy and sounds good, and VJ fits in well on the kit, hitting heavy and fast. Standout songs include My Life, The Factory Gates, Coming Home, One More Last Song, and my favourite, In Cannons, which even has a lovely poem attached to it. Experimental, punchy, fun, and surprisingly deep, EEEW, which sounds like a dodgy wrestling promotion, is short but very sweet, and I can recommend it. And finally, we reached the band's sixth album, Stay Together. Released in 2016 only through Fiction this time, it was produced by Kaiser Chiefs themselves alongside Brian Higgins, and it's their longest album of 51 minutes and 41 seconds. The album also shows a change in sound, and usually I criticise that sort of direction, but the band has always had a small pop rock vibe to their stuff anyway. This album is actually a good example of that kind of style shift where, yes, it is more pop-leaning, but it doesn't feel lazy. Looking at you, One More Light by Linkin Park. Like the previous album, I don't really have a lot in terms of background, not even touring-wise. All that I have to say is that the band released two singles before this album's release, those singles being We Stay Together and Parachutes. This album is maybe the band's most positive-sounding one, I think. Like their previous album, it's gotten a mixed response, but like their last album, I don't really get why. It's nothing new for the band to take this sort of direction, especially since it's sort of been bubbling since their debut. It's a good showcasing of a naturally progressing sound, and at the same time, you sort of know that the band has the same energy and charm throughout the album. And since it is a more positive album, it has more positive subjects to talk about, namely the theme of love. I think that the stylistic change matches the subject matter change, and while it's not new for pop rock or even punk to talk about love, I think it's a good change. It's a very welcome one. It keeps a balanced tone that way, and it helps with the fact that this album knows what it actually wants to do. And also, unlike most other pop-leaning albums in rock bands' careers, the production doesn't bear anything here. I guess that's because the band took part in this one, which suggests that maybe they wanted to make something like this before. Who knows? Maybe they'll have a more punk sound on the next album. Maybe they'll carry that same production value. Once again, who knows? Anyway, yeah, this album is very colourful, and I like the style shift. And I'm not just saying that what I'm saying to rail against critics, because I completely see where this album could have gone wrong, but this album didn't go as wrong for me. Of course, maybe the band missed a trick since it was released in 2016, so they could have released an album that reflected people's feelings towards that particular year. But once again, that's another example of the band going the opposite route, and I like it, and the band managed to pull it off. Ricky's vocals sound cleaner and clearer. Andrew's riffs and solos are still great, so his bass work is grouping good. Bain's keyboard work gets a lot of time shinier, and VJ's drumming is slower, but still matching the song well. Obviously, Structs are really great, lyrics cover love and relationships and things like that. So the next songs include Holly My Soul, Why Do You Do It To Me, Parachute, Sunday Morning, and my favourite in Happen in a Heartbeat. Produced, written, and performed well with a nice solid concept, Stay Together has a lot more going for it than you might think, and I could recommend this one. So, let's round them up. I'd have to say my favourite is possibly Employment, but their third and fifth albums are also really, really, really good. I just edge out Employment slightly above those two. Least favourite is maybe yours truly, Angry Mob. It's still good, but it can feel like a one-song album at times, and it's still memorable, but not as much as it should be compared to the others. But hey, when it comes to my opinions, I never miss a beat. Anyway, I'll see you next time for Jacksonville, Florida's own Limp Bizkit. Looking forward to doing that one. Thank you for watching, you're awesome. Bye bye.